prospering Northumberland event. Has anybody been here from the beginning? A few people, that's great. Well, it started back in 2012, is that correct, Dave? 2012 is Dave and local media got together and sort of took a view of the landscape of the business senses in Northumberland County. Notice that some people were really prospering, some folks were struggling. We wanted to find out why those people were being successful, those businesses. What were they doing that was right? And how could we share that with all the businesses throughout Northumberland County so that everybody prospers? And Prospering Northumberland was created. We've had speakers, this is our 6th event. We've had speakers talk about everything from entrepreneurialism to downtown vitalization to marketing, which was last spring with Ken Wong. Was anybody here last spring in Brighton to hear Ken speak? This is part 2 tonight. You left everybody wanting more, so we are definitely going to hear more. You will notice on your chairs there is a buy local survey. Part of what we are doing here in Northumberland County as well is to inspire everybody locally to buy local. That's not just our citizens and consumers, but also our businesses as well. So if you could take a moment, either to fill that out here tonight or take it with you, you'll be hearing more about that in the future as well. We're going to stick around a little bit afterwards as well. We do have some raffle prizes that we'll give away, so make sure you have your tickets out when Ken is done. Walking in the land of giants. How do I compete against low prices and marketing hustle from big firms? Ken is going to talk about this tonight. He has earned the cover of Canadian Business Magazine and a place in the Canadian Marketing Hall of Legends. He's known for his energetic and very entertaining and content-rich presentations, which we are going to hear tonight. Please welcome the distinguished Professor of Marketing at Queen's School of Business, Ken Wong.
It's great to be back. Always a little nervous when you get asked to come back and do a second talk. Shortly after the first talk, I'm not sure if you're being asked to come back because you did a good job or because you blew it so terribly that they now want to understand what you were really trying to say. But tonight we are going to talk about walking in the land of giants, about how to compete against these larger firms. But I'm going to do it in a slightly different way than you might be expecting. You see, a lot of people have misconceptions about business, about this topic, and even about what I do for a living. And I discovered this some time ago, actually, in conversation with my children. I have 4 children, 2 sons, and my 2 sons are the 2 oldest. And at the time, my youngest of my sons was in grade school. I guess he'd been given an assignment by his teacher to talk about his family and to talk about his parents and what they did for a living and so on. And so he turned to me one night at dinner and he said, "Dad, what do you do for a living?" And I was kind of surprised, because he sees me go and teach at Queen's. He's been to the office. He sees me pack the bags and hit the road. But I figured I'd just answer him straight up. I said, "Well, son, I teach, I consult, and I give talks." And he said, "Well, yeah, I know that." He said, "But why do people give you money?" So I was going to explain that to him when all of a sudden his older brother James, 3 years his senior, turns to him and says, "Ben, don't be so stupid. People ask him questions, he gives them answers, they give him money." I was just about to chastise James for talking to his brother this way. And all of a sudden, Ben looks up and he says, "Oh man, I get it." I said, "What do you get?" He said, "If that's a question, it's going to cost you $5 to find out." I gave it to him on principle. The reason I tell this story is that while I do have some opinions about how to compete in the land of giants, in a session like this, where you come from such a diverse range of sizes of business and specific industries, it would be folly for me to assume that I had the answers to all of the questions that may be on your mind. What I will have for you, however, is a series of questions that you can ask yourself. Some things to really think about, not just during the talk, but long after the talk, hopefully, that will help you really deal with this problem that is facing every smaller sized business today. And it's happening in every industry because everywhere we go, we're coming back to this notion You just can't coach size. Doesn't matter how agile you are, doesn't matter how quick-witted you are. In the end, if you play a game of size, you will get squashed. And it's not just size that you're up against these days. Industries all around us, especially those of you in the retail sector, are facing enormous challenges. New technologies, new store formats. All of a sudden, Canadian Tire is selling groceries. Shoppers Drug Mart is selling experiences like spas. Everywhere we go, businesses are changing, and that requires resources to keep up, and then the advantage then moves to the giant. So tonight, I'm going to give you a series of questions to ask yourself that really deal with 3 keys that you need to be able to do if you really want to beat these giants. And these 3 key skills are, quite simply, the ability to detect, the ability to destroy, and if you cannot destroy, then at least avoid the one instrument of economic destruction that threatens to bankrupt every business these days, and that is the dreaded margin-sucking magnet. Margin-sucking magnet. Now you notice I said margin-sucking magnet. I didn't say volume-sucking magnet. I didn't say sales-sucking magnet. I didn't say market share-sucking magnet. I said specifically margin-sucking magnet. And the reason for that is that the key to competing in a land of giants is not to sell more, it's to sell better and to sell smarter. And the key to doing that is the realization that we're not in business just for the purpose of selling product. We're in business to make money. Profit, not sales, is the key to the game. And the beautiful thing about profit as an objective is it's objective. It's not a matter of personal opinion or political philosophy. It's not even a matter of so-called scientific research. Profitability is defined by generally accepted accounting principles and tax law. You can define it differently than I'm going to show you, but if you do, you're going to jail. When we think about profitability, our primary concern is not just how much we make, but how much we make relative to how much we have to invest in the business. The term we worry about mostly tonight, though, is this one here, net income, how much money we make. And how much money we make is simply the product of 2 numbers. The amount of money we make on every unit we sell, what we call a unit margin, times the number of units we sell. Unit margin is simply the difference between the price we receive and the costs we incur. Unit volume is simply the product of 2 numbers. It's the size of our market times the percentage of that market that buys from us. Everybody see that? Simple arithmetic, simple formula. You don't even need to be Asian like me and therefore good with numbers to do this. This is really simple. The beautiful thing about this equation is that it reveals for you the fundamental truth of business. And that is that if you're going to make more money, there's only 4 ways to do it. Get your prices up, get your costs down, get a bigger share of the existing market, a bigger share of the pie, or take a small pie and turn it into a big one. That's it. By definition, there are only 4 pathways to profitability. And so if you think about the threat that comes, whether it comes from competing against a giant, or whether it comes from an uncertain economy, or whether it comes from a new competitor showing up in town, or whether it comes from the internet, the question always comes back down to how will this affect my prices? How will this affect my costs? How will this affect my share of the pie? How will this affect the size of the pie? And so if you want to think about competing in a land of giants in those terms, then the question is, can I sustain my prices in a land of giants? How does competing against the giant firm, affect my costs? What will happen to my share? What will happen to my size? And so on. When we talk to businesses about this very subject, the first thing that most people think about, of course, is the volume side of the business. They're all worried that they're not going to be able to sell enough product in order to stay in business. And so they will do just about anything they can in order to sustain that volume. And the most common of those things, of course, is they'll cut their price. They'll cut their price, or they'll charge the same price that they always have, but they'll give this extended range of services, all of which elevates their costs and minimizes their overall margins. Let me show you the following in doing so. These are three really key numbers that I think every business should know. For the average North American business, every time I take a product scheduled to sell for $1, and I cut the price of that product by one single penny, one lousy percent, the moment I do that in the average North American business, I experience a reduction in profitability somewhere in the order of 11%. 11%. Now you can do this calculation for your business or for any business. I strongly recommend you do. For the average North American business, if you look at profit as a percentage of total sales, it runs about 9%. When I take 1% off price, that 1% off price may originate as a reduction in total revenue, but ultimately it works its way all the way through the income statement to reduce your profits, not 1 out of 100, that's the price cut. The reduction in profits is 1 out of 9 or 11%. So do the math. If the only way you can stay in business is by offering the customer, let's say, a 10% price cut or tax-free 13% price cut, what's 10 times 11? More than 100, isn't it? Right? You are slowly but surely going bankrupt, or in terms that the West Coast resonates with, we are fundamentally violating the concept of work-life balance. We're working harder and we're making less money. And that's just the start of the problem. You see, because two other things happen when we start cutting price. The first thing that happens is, of course, we end up destroying what we have, what we call our price ceiling. Customers no longer place the same value on what we do that they once did. Take a business like Air Canada. Air Canada is a service company, not unlike retailers in this community, not unlike those of you in the personal service business. And like every service company, they face a dilemma. And here's the dilemma. How much would you pay for a seat on a flight that just took off? Your dream destination? Nothing, would you? Nothing. It has no value. It is the most perishable of all kinds of inventory. Service is time sensitive. And so once that flight takes off, that seat has no value. So someone up at Air Canada, as they do in many companies these days, stands up at a meeting and says, you know what? We got all these empty seats, and it's still costing us money to fly that plane. So let's put a bum in that seat. And anything we can get for that seat, anything at all, makes a contribution to our overall financial performance. So let's have a seat sale. Let's take a $1,000 seat, we'll put it on sale for $250. A 75% price cut. 75 times 11, way more than 100. You're not just going bankrupt, you're doing so very, very quickly. But now it gets really bad. Because eventually that customer who paid $1,000 gets on the plane next to somebody who paid $250. And what do you think they say when they find out what their fellow passenger paid? They're not very happy, are they? You can almost hear them now. What, am I stupid? The hell am I paying $1,000 for when this guy got it for $250? You know what? Next time, I'm not paying $1,000. You know what I'm paying? I'm paying what the seat's worth. You know what it's worth? $250. Because that's what you were willing to sell it for. And in the worst case scenario, And those of you in retailing with pre-Christmas Boxing Day sales looming, mark my words closely. In the worst case scenario, the customer comes to learn a new behavior. Oh, I understand the game. No competition, lots of demand, you're going to charge me $1,000. But when there's competition, when I threaten not to buy your product, you're going to go soft on me and drop it to $250. So you know what? From now on, I'm always hesitant to buy your product. I'm always going to mention a competing offer. Just a pure negotiation skill. And so in effect, $250 becomes the new price ceiling. That's what you can now command. And the question becomes then, well, what do you do? Now here's the problem. Your price just went from $1,000 to $250, but your costs haven't gone down, have they? Your margin has gotten compressed. And this creates an enormous problem. Now, before I get into the details of the problem, I should note one important thing. You may be sitting there thinking, oh yeah, that's airlines. But does anybody really talk to their seatmate about what they paid for a price? Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but the reality in all sectors is this. We have never lived in a time of greater price transparency than we live in today. Everyone can go on the internet and find out what they can buy more product for somewhere else, maybe close, maybe far away. Even if you're in the business of bidding on tenders, responding to requests for quotations, every time there's a public bid, everybody knows who the winner was, and everybody knows what the winner bid. Everybody now knows the price of it. And so prices tend to fall as this competition ensues. Now what happens? Well, now CEOs are faced with a real challenge. Every quarter, they're going to go before their board of directors, and worse yet, if they're publicly traded, they're going to go in front of the industry analysts, the sharks, the Mr. Wonderfuls of this world. And the challenge that they have is this. They're going to go before those audiences and report declining margins. And the first question that they're going to be asked after they report those declining margins is, so what are you going to do to get them back up? And so the command goes out to everybody, you have to tell me what I can do to get my costs down. Well, everybody starts to run around looking for ways of reducing costs. And they look for the easy hits first. They look at things like human resource budgets, training budgets. Now think about it. Spending money on training, on professional development, the reason we do that is to have a highly qualified workforce. But let's be perfectly honest, and I hate to say this given the business I'm in, we can stop funding professional development right here, right now, this minute. My people don't wake up tomorrow instantly stupid. Or more stupid, as the case may be. 5 to 10 years from now, they may have an obsolete skill set, but tomorrow, we can get by. Don't worry, we'll put it back when times get better. We look at areas like R&D. The purpose of R&D is to have great products and services to sell. But I can stop funding R&D right here, right now, this minute. Tomorrow, I'll still have something to sell. That may be obsolete within 3 years, but don't worry. We'll put it back when times get better. Marketing and sales. Purpose of marketing and sales is to let the world know the quality of our products and services. But I can stop funding marketing and sales right here, right now, this minute. People won't forget about me tomorrow. Maybe 6 months from now they will, but tomorrow, you can get by, don't worry. We'll put it back when times get better. And so we start reducing costs in these areas that seem discretionary, but actually are fundamental to what we need to do in order to have high prices. Because let's face it, Nobody ever paid more for something they could get elsewhere for less. You want to keep your price up, you want to avoid that kind of profit erosion, you better have people with the skill set to give the customer something different. You better have products and services that offer something above commodity levels. And you better make certain that the customer recognizes those points of difference, or they're not going to reward you for them. So these so-called discretionary expenses are not really so discretionary. When you take them away, what happens? Well, obviously, costs come down, don't they? But what happens to the quality of your products and services when you strip away staff, when you strip away R&D, when you strip away marketing? Quality comes down, and when quality comes down, what happens to price? Well, price came down, margins got shrunk, we cut costs, but we cut the wrong costs, quality suffers, what happens to price? It comes down, back where we started. Now what do? Well, I can't raise price, I've just destroyed quality, so what do? I cut costs a little bit more, don't I? Over and over and over again. Technically, we call this incremental product degradation. Personally, I call this efficiently going bankrupt. Welcome to Eaton's of Canada. Welcome to Sears. Welcome to Burt's. Welcome to any number of seemingly iconic brands that could do no wrong, that are no longer with us today. Why? Because they started to think about price as a tactical weapon that they could simply manipulate at will to influence levels of demand. The problem, what they didn't realize was you cannot manipulate price unless you are also willing to manipulate cost. And that creates a real problem when you're looking at a customer that wants consistent, reliable delivery. When you're looking at a customer who says, my loyalty depends upon my ability to trust you to deliver that consistent, reliable quality. And the erosion happens quickly because the magnitude of the price cuts is enormous. You see, for the average North American business, every time I reduce those variable costs by 1%, in an effort to justify or offset my price reduction, my profits only go up by 7.8%. Now I say only goes up by 7.8%. Let's make no mistake. Most executives would give their eye teeth for an 8% improvement in profitability. But when the motivation for a price cut is to offset a price reduction, then you also need to appreciate every 1% reduction in price requires a 1.34% reduction in cost just to stay even with where you started. Just to stay even with where you started. Want to give the customer 10% off? Go for it. As long as you can find a 13.4% reduction in cost, you'll make off just as much money as you made before. If you cannot find 13.4% reduction in cost, then you're going to make less money. You're going to work harder, you may sell more product, but you're going to make less money. And why do we do it? Simple. We want volume. But here's the problem. For the average North American business, every time I increase my sales volume by 1%, by acquiring a new customer, my profitability only goes up by 3.3%. And what that means is this. Every time you reduce price by 1%, you need to find another 3.4% more customers just to break even with where you started. Just to break even with where you started. Want to cut price 10%? Okay. But if you want to justify it, that 10% price cut better result in 34% more customers. If it doesn't, you're making less money. It's a harsh reality, isn't it? and yet we are preoccupied with volume. I often tell a story in these sessions of how this dilemma affected one of my personal favorite brands, Starbucks. I love Starbucks. I love Starbucks because I have this coffee addiction. I mean, they pump it intravenously before every performance. But I also love Starbucks because Starbucks built their business by the book. Right? They did everything right. They even started off with a mission statement. Not one of these stupid mission statements, you know the kind of talk you got. We're a high-quality firm dedicated to creating value for our customers through innovative applications and new technology by leveraging our number one asset, our people. In a socially responsible way. Now, Starbucks had a very fundamental mission. Starbucks said, our mission is to create a refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world. Now, that probably sounds very West Coast, Birkenstock, tree-hugging, artsy-fartsy, doesn't it? But think about it. Refuge and haven from hustle and bustle of this world. If that's your mission, then you tell me, what do you have? Hard yellow plastic chairs or upholstered furniture? Earth tones or pastels? Nora Jones music playing in the background or AM radio? Metal or wood? Do you worry about how fast you can get people through your checkout line, or do you make it more a matter of them experiencing coffee theater by smelling the aroma of fresh brewed coffee and seeing baristas as they whip together the foam with little pictures in the foam on top? Different game, isn't it? Different game. Well, Starbucks designed that product around the notion what it required to give the consumer a refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world. And as you might imagine, upholstered furniture is more expensive than hard yellow plastic seats. Coffee theater is a lot more expensive than having automatic machines where you press a button and a latte comes out a spigot. It's a higher cost model of doing business. And so a cup of refuge and haven comes in somewhere around $4 a cup. $4 a cup. It's okay though, because there's lots of places where people need, want, and have the ability to pay $4 for a cup of refuge and haven. It's not a problem. Starbucks brings out the model, puts its restaurants, its branches in locations near that population. Everybody's happy. People are getting their refuge and haven. Starbucks is making money hand over fist. And so Starbucks decides to go public. They're going to list on the stock market. Stock market is a demanding mistress, as the cliche goes. Because when people invest in stocks, they generally invest for one of two reasons. They want the income that comes from dividends, or they want the growth that comes from the appreciation in the price of the stock. Starbucks investors wanted the appreciation. Well, if your stock price is going to go up, it's going to go up because somebody's making a bet on your future, and they're making that bet based upon your growth rate. So Starbucks decides to embark upon an aggressive expansion strategy. They start opening branches everywhere, not just in major centers, but in smaller centers like Kingston, where I live, Coburg, where you live. All of a sudden, there are Starbucks everywhere. In big cities, there might even be two Starbucks kitty-cornered from each other. Starbucks are everywhere. Until, of course, they run out of neighborhoods filled with people who need, want, and have the ability to pay $4 for a cup of refuge and haven. And when they open up a branch in one of those locations, what do you think life is like as the branch manager? You can't sell it, can you? It's not that the product isn't good. The product's as good as it ever was. It's just people can't buy what they can't afford. So you have diminished performance, and you get called into head office, and head office says, "What's wrong with you?" And you say, "It's not me. It's the market. It's the neighborhood I'm in." Right? They don't pay that price. You want me to sell coffee? I can sell coffee, just let me cut price. To which Starbucks corporate management says, suck it up, put on a helmet, princess, it's going to be a tough year. Because we're not cutting price just to accommodate your little neighborhood. You see, we have all these other branches in neighborhoods that do want to, and you can't afford $4 for a cup of refuge in Haven. So you just go your way. Well, it doesn't take too long before all of a sudden those less profitable branches start to produce really bad performance. And in the case of Starbucks, the result was a loss. A loss in consecutive quarters. This company that was once the darling of the business world, consecutive quarters, losses that were so large, they fired the entire senior management team. They rehired the original founder, named Schultz, to come back and be CEO. First thing Schultz does, he closes down 30% of all Starbucks operations around the world. Not surprisingly, he shuts down the 30% in those locations located in neighborhoods that don't need, don't want, can't afford a $4 cup of refuge in Haven. Second thing he does is he does a broadcast, a video broadcast to all of the remaining Starbucks employees. And in the first minute of his 90-minute broadcast, he says, take all the automatic coffee dispensing machines, the ones we put in to improve efficiency in customer service, take them and trash them. And for the next 89 minutes, he retrained the staff in how to make coffee the original Starbucks way. And the company improved. Never back to its complete glory days, of course, because there were some decisions made that he just couldn't work out in the short term. Starbucks made big investments in things like the drive-through Starbucks. The drive-through Starbucks. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, nothing says refuge in Haven. Like sitting in a drive-through lineup for 5 minutes, sucking exhaust. Well, some guy orders his triple venti skinny latte, no stir with almond syrup, a little bit of foam, and of course, chocolate sprinkles on one side and chocolate on the other. That's a 5-minute beverage preparation. I got a coffee addiction. You stick me in line for 5 minutes, I'm going into caffeine rage. I want to pull him out of his truck, I want to punch him in the mouth. Now, in fairness, if you want a quick hit of coffee, you don't go to Starbucks. You know where you go? You go to Timmy's. Why? Because everything there is set up for speed. Even the order protocol. I don't go in and order a blah, 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 blah. I say, give me a double double. And I don't need to learn Spanish to order sizes in small, medium, large, extra large. And I know right after I order it, within 2 minutes, it'll be served. I can guarantee it. Why? Because there's a little timer right under the drive-through window. It starts at 2 minutes, it starts counting down after you order, and every employee knows it hits 000 before you get your double-double. They're getting a mild electric shock through the floor. Seriously, you got kids playing hockey. You check out the arena. Next time you've got that 5:30 in the morning hockey practice, I defy you to find a Starbucks cup. Lots of Timmy's cups, but no Starbucks cups, huh? If you ever fly out of Pearson Airport and walk through that arrivals gate, you'll see Tim Hortons lined up like crazy. They've got to snake back and forth like Disneyland to get a double-double. You go down to the other end of the terminal where there's Starbucks, massive line, one maybe two deep. 401. I can't remember the name of the first 401 stop, but it's the only one from Toronto as you drive towards Montreal where there is a Starbucks. There's a Tim Hortons in there as well. Compare the lineups. What do you want on the highway? A quick hit of coffee or a refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world? It's a simple case of the right product at the right time being sold to the right person. What you really seeing here is a very critical notion in how to compete against the land, in the land of giants. And the reality is that giants need volume, and they need lots of volume to make that profit up. In order to secure that volume, giants are willing to have lower prices or to give more quality than other firms at the same price. The key to their success is that they are structured in a way that makes them both willing and able to make those price cuts. So if you want to survive in the land of giants, then you have to realize that if you want to compete against their prices, you're probably going to be dead in the water. Why? Because the giant has the ability and the willingness to cut costs that you simply don't have. Let me explain to you exactly why I say that. One of the most fundamental of all concepts in economics is a very simple notion called economies of scale. And scale economies relate to what happens to cost as you increase your volume. Now, let me give you a very simple example. Prosper Northumberland calls me up and says, "We'd like to have you come and address the audience." And I said, "Well, I'd be happy to." And they said, "Well, how much would you charge?" And I said, "Well, for you, a deal, right?" Now, we are talking hypotheticals here, right? So I say, "For you, a deal, $100. But there's one condition. Once you book the date, I get $100. And I get this $100, I don't care if the Lion Center burns down. I don't care if you blow the publicity and nobody shows up. I don't care if there's an atomic bomb that hits in the heart of Coburg. I don't care if you've booked the date, you're paying me $100, it is a fixed sunk cost." So Dan starts to put together his numbers and he says, "Geez, you know, if only one person comes out to Ken's session, then the unit cost of having Ken present is $100 a head. And if we're going to make any kind of money then on that session, we are going to have to charge a price in excess of $100. Make sense? All right, now, I realize we are late in the evening, but I have to prepare you. Right? You may want to get out a hanky, a piece of Kleenex, or some piece of cloth, because I am about to explode your brain. I am going to show you some mathematical magic that is just going to blow your mind. Watch what happens. Dan says, "Well, geez, you know, if 2 people come to the session, though, if 2 people come, the unit cost of having him present, it falls to $50 a head. Now, get your cloth ready. Now, I can charge a price less than $100. And I can make more at that lower price than I could make when I was charging more than $100. How cool is that? And it gets even better. We get 4 people, it falls to $25 a head. We get 8 people, it falls to $12.50 a head. That's an intelligent man. He looks at the pattern, he says, "Look at this trend line. You know, if we can get 60, 70 people in the room, then by then he'll be paying us to show up." Or so he hopes. Obviously, these things don't continue forever. They start to bottom out. Now, the reason I draw your attention to this is that in over 90% of all companies, the way in which we set prices is a mechanism called cost-plus pricing. We add up all of our costs, and then we add to that what we consider a reasonable profit margin. The sum of the two, cost plus profit, becomes our price. Okay? It's not the most theoretically correct way to do it, but administratively it's the most simple, and so over 90% of all companies do it this way. And as a result of that, if you look at parallel to that cost curve, there is a price curve. And if you understand this relationship, then you'll also understand why people get so excited about having dominant market share and what is the real motivation behind the big box stores' source of advantage. You see, to the extent that these scale economies exist, whoever has the biggest market share has, by definition, the biggest volume. Whoever has the biggest volume has the lowest cost. Whoever has the lowest cost can charge the lowest price, and at that small price, they can make money while all of the smaller competitors lose money. And so you have the most fundamental rule of competitive strategy in the land of giants. If you're going to compete against someone bigger than you better not be selling the same thing they do. If you're going to compete against someone bigger than you better not be selling the same thing they do. Why? Because nobody ever paid more for something they did elsewhere for less. Whoever makes the most charges the least and wins all of the business. You can have all the business you want as long as you're willing to cut price. For some bizarre reason, all these pinko economists call this perfect competition. This is not perfect competition, this is stupid competition. What makes it even worse is that big box stores have changed the way in which this competitive advantage by the scale is being used. You see, in the old days, when we had lower costs than the competition, what did we do? Well, we added the same margin the competition does, and we passed it on to the customer in the form of lower price. Just one problem with lower price. Anybody got a watch with a screw pen, a second hand, or a digital watch? You do that? No? Anyone? You do? I want you to time me on something. All right. You say start, I'll say stop. You tell me how much time is elapsed. Whenever you're ready.
Start.
Done. How long?
4 seconds.
4 seconds. That's how long it takes to make a price cut. 4 seconds actually slow. I can usually do it in under 2. Right? You cut price, people beat a path to your door, competition knows it's because you cut price. How long does it take the competition to match your price cut? 4 seconds. So what happens? They cut price, you cut price, they cut price, you cut price, until nobody can cut price any farther. But nobody's selling more product. Why? Because there's no motivation for anybody to change. Let's suppose, however, we change the game a little bit. Let's suppose that instead of cutting your price by a cent and reducing your profit by 11.1%, you said to yourself, what I'll do is I'll spend the money to train my staff to give a level of customer service the large competitor can't deliver. Or I'll spend that money to bring in some local products that the big box store, which wants to sell nationally, will not carry. If you do that and customers beat a path to your door, how long does it take your competition to match your specialization? A lot longer than 4 seconds, isn't it? That's what we call your window of opportunity. And so big box stores came to realize it and said, you know what? Rather than just give it to them in the form of lower price, what we're going to do is give it to them in the form of better quality. And what some competitors said, better quality, for example, would be President's Choice decadent cookies. President's Choice decadent cookies take the cost advantage they have over national brands, and instead of giving it to the customer in the form of a parity cookie at a lower price, they charge the same price as national brands, but they ram a few extra chocolate chips into every cookie. Same price, better quality, better value. And then one day somebody got really greedy and said, well, why be unidimensional? Let's give some of it to them in the form of lower prices. Let's give some of the cost advantage to them in the form of better quality. And let's keep some for ourselves. And when they do that, the result is a product that now has intrinsically better value for the customer. A better ratio of quality to price. And if they are successful in marketing that superior value to the customer, The result is more sales. More sales means more scale. And more scale means even lower costs. Welcome to the self-perpetuating strategy, also known as the productivity cycle or the virtuous cycle. A cost advantage shared with consumers leads to better value, more sales, more scale, lower costs, better value, more sales, more scale, lower costs, better value, on and on and on it goes until ultimately there's no more cost reduction available. You hit that flat portion of that cost curve. Welcome to IKEA. Welcome to Home Depot. Welcome to Runner. Welcome to Golf Town. Welcome to virtually every industry that finds itself bulking up in order to realize these scale economies. And as long as that giant firm is smart enough to try and share, or is smart enough to share the proceeds of the cost savings that come from size with the consumer, they can provide this never-ending source of better and better value. If, however, they get greedy and they start to extract those lower costs out of the system, and they stop sharing it with the customer, well, now, in a sense, they end up killing the momentum of this cycle. But that is the source of the cost advantage. If you want to win this game, you have to think in a slightly different way than we are traditionally trained to think. Because we're trained to think that volume is better, that selling more is better. The Giants game, let me back up here. Every market, if you think about the distribution of customers in terms of the price they want to pay and the quality that they require, in terms of volume, every market has this triangular shape. Lots of people want adequate quality at the lowest price, evidence dollar stores. A very small number of people want the very best, and money is no object. And so what you have are two very different business models, two very different ways that you can compete. You can compete the way most big box stores do, high volume of standardized products. There's going to be low margin because nobody ever paid more for something they could get elsewhere for less. So a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup is a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup is a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Doesn't matter where I buy it, it's still Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Margins are going to be small, but I'll sell a lot of it. At the other extreme, if you're going to focus on one of those specialty markets where there's very low volume, then you better command a very high premium. You ever go into a boutique store like Louis Vuitton luggage? It's interesting. I've often asked myself, what kind of person pays $1,500 for a handbag? A handbag which I personally think is rather ugly. $1,500. And so I walked into the store one day, just standing around and watch people shop. I figured I could do that until they asked me to leave. And nobody came in the store. And so I said to the clerk, I said, how do you guys stay in business? There's nobody in here. I mean, how many Louis Vuitton handbags do you sell in a given week? And she said, maybe one. I said, maybe one? How the hell do you stay in business? She said, we made so much money on that one sale. It carries everything else. It carries everything else. There are these two very different ways in which you can operate a business. Make a little money and sell a lot, make a lot of money but don't sell very much. Pre-Walmart, every giant translated their cost advantage into lower prices. The giants today are getting smart. They're starting to see that eventually their opportunity to reduce costs further is going to be limited. They've hit that flat part of that cost curve. And so they're saying, you know what? I can't continue to win on the basis of low price alone. They've also come to the realization that because they're trying to sell the same product in the same way in every store in every part of the world in which they operate, they have some limits as to their ability to add value and gain a higher price. And they're coming to the realization that there's only so much automation and impersonation and impersonalization that you can bring to the party. Sooner or later, you start to deal with a consumer that says, I want to deal with a person, not a machine. Example. Welcome to Queen's University. Want to speak to somebody in the School of Business? Press 1. Faculty of Science? Press 2. Law? Press 3. Engineering? Press 4. Want to hear more choices? Press 5. Want to hear this again? Press 6. We indicated the School of Business. Welcome. Want to speak to somebody in marketing? Press 1. Finance? Press 2. Human Resources? Press 3. Accounting? You may want to get away. Tell me something. What do you do when you encounter that automated receptionist? Press 0. I'm sorry, what's your name, man? Sky? You know, Sky, we have a name for people like you. You know what we call them, Sky? Margin sucking maggot.
Pressing 0 is margin.
Yeah. Let me explain why. See, the whole reason that I went with an automated receptionist is that it's lower cost than a human operator, isn't it? Right? Because machines are better than people. Right? Machines don't get sick. Machines don't form unions. Machines don't whine. They don't complain. They don't bitch. Machine doesn't work. What do? You kick it. You can't do that to people anymore. So I brought the staff, I bring in the machines. Sky calls up, she presses 0. Now what happens? Well, now I've still got all the costs of developing and operating my automated receptionist, and I've got to go back and rehire the human operators. My cost just went up. Why? Can I scan it? I said, no, I said. Sky doesn't know who she needs to talk to. She's special. Her needs are complex. It's all good news, Sky, isn't it?
Always.
Always.
Those are my friends. What about
Well, the unfortunate thing is when Sky's a customer, it is all about her, isn't it? Because every time I lose her as a customer, my obsession with volume forces me to go find a replacement. And one thing we know from the School of Loyalty Management, it costs anywhere from 5 to 7 times more money to acquire a new account than it does to retain and service an existing account. So the illusion that I've cut costs, and therefore will have lower prices, is patently false, isn't it? Not in hard costs, but certainly in soft costs. And so the giant sees all these things and says, you know what? I cannot continue to focus on my historic franchise. Watch this Christmas season. You are going to see a retail battle like we have not seen in some time. Walmart and the other big box stores have already put Wall Street and Bay Street on notice. Their earnings will not be at their historic level because they anticipate a price war. And the price war isn't just coming from other retailers. The price war is coming from e-commerce shopping on the internet. The price war is coming from a Sears, which is absolutely desperate for survival right now. And when you're desperate for survival, you tend to dump off inventory as quickly as you can. Watch for the sales. Watch pre-Boxing Day may become pre-December Day. All of a sudden, you're going to see Black Monday and Black Friday in the U.S. moved up to Canada. To defend themselves, they're starting to go upscale. You're starting to see it already in their advertising, focusing on local products. You're starting to see it on them offering an expanded service over the internet, the ability to buy online, pick it up at the store on your way home. No need to park, just come through the drive-thru, we'll put it in your car. These are enormous expenses that most small retailers will not be able to keep up with. So what can you do to combat the virtuous cycle. The first is know who to sell to. Understand the profile of what we call your ideal account. And your ideal account is Sky. That person with those complex needs. That person with that pain in the ass attitude. That no big box store is structured to service. That customer that really wants to see you work for their business. Who wants the recognition that their money is special because it's their money. And this customer typically wants something a little bit different than everybody else. They are prepared to pay for something special. We're going to talk about this in just a minute. Second thing you need to do is enhance your productivity. While you will never be able to enjoy the scale economies of a big box store, you may still be able to have a cost structure that is competitive simply because it's smarter. And when I say smarter, what I'm really talking about is finding a way to improve quality without increasing your overall costs, and finding a way to reduce costs without decreasing quality in the process. That's really the definition of productivity. It's a better ratio of output to input. Whether you do that by getting more at the same cost or getting the same at a lower cost, doesn't really matter. Both will give you enhanced productivity. So let's start with market selection. We say it all starts with your target market. Let me show you exactly why that is. You ever wonder how to make people happy? That's what marketers do. And to make people happy, marketers realize that virtually every product category, customer preferences are almost always established along a single dimension. So, for example, going back to Starbucks, if we think about coffee, we can distinguish the taste of coffee as being either weak, a double-double or Starbucks blonde, or something strong and robust. A French roast, an Italian roast, an espresso, what have you. And if I were to survey everybody in the world, and I said to them, tell me where on that taste continuum your ideal taste lies, the distribution of the population would look something like this. The old normal curve or bell curve. You may be familiar with this. This may be the reason, like me, that I passed calculus, right? Everybody had to get belled up. If this is the distribution of people, and the height of the curve represents the number of people or percentage of the population preferring a certain taste, if you were just going to market one flavor of coffee, because you need the standardization that gives you scale, right? Where would you locate your taste? Right in the middle, wouldn't you? Why? Because that's the single taste profile that gives you the largest volume of people saying it's ideal. And if you were to say to these folks, quantify your preference for this brand on a scale of 0 to 100, where 100 is you're completely satisfied, all of the people along that green line, they would rate that product 100. Right? What about the people who don't sit at that level? Do you ever see the movie A Beautiful Mind? Right? About this fellow named Nash who came up with this thing called the Nash equilibrium. Right? Well, Nash equilibrium was really discovered, the legend is, when he went to a bar with some of his collegial friends. I don't know if you remember the scene in the movie. But they're in this bar, and all of his friends encounter a group of young women. And all of the young men are all gravitating towards this one individual woman. And as a result, all the other women are being ignored. the notion of the Nash equilibrium is this. If everybody focuses on one object of their affection, only one person gets to go home with a smile on their face. Everybody else is unhappy. They would be much better off if somehow they divvied up the targets. If somehow they said, you can go for this one, I'm going for this one, we'll all go a different place. Instead, what happens? Everyone chases the biggest segment. Because there's only one ideal, there's only one winner, everybody else loses. And in order to compensate for being less ideal, we cut price. We cut price, costs have to come down. As costs come down, we become even more of a commodity. Once you're selling a commodity, the only person who wins is whoever has the lowest cost. And so all of a sudden, advantage giant. But here's the fatal flaw. Remember that distribution? Remember that position in the middle where everybody said, that's the biggest segment, that's where I position. The problem with this position is this. Everyone to the left of that line is unhappy. Just as everybody to the right of that line is unhappy. What's significant? They're unhappy for different reasons. Everybody to the left of the line says, you know that coffee, that national brand in the middle, it's way too strong. You want my business? Make it weaker. And they'd like to. The problem is everybody to the right of that line is saying, you know what the problem is with that national brand? It's way too milky. It's way too weak. So tell me now, what is the national brand? Is it just right? Is it too strong? Or is it too weak? Kind of explains why it's so hard being in government, doesn't it? That's the classic problem. If one size fits all, not everyone's going to be happy. Some are going to be happier than others. Those who resemble the majority, they're going to be delighted. Those who are a little bit different, they're going to be, part of the expression, really pissed off. So what do you do in that instance? Well, who said one size has to fit all? If your way of competing in the land of giants is to try and go toe-to-toe with the giant, you will lose every time. Because you won't have anything different to sell, and you'll be selling at a higher price than the giant. You want to compete against the giant, don't sell what the giant sells. If I said to you, you don't have to be in the middle, where would you locate? Well, you may locate in one of these two places, right? Off the middle. And you'd say, well, why would you compete there? I mean, look how much slower the market is there relative to what the giant gets by focusing in the middle. But it's not about a single point. You see, when you locate in position Y, you become the closest thing to ideal for everybody left of Y. And as for those right of Y, you will share those with Grand A. Similarly, if you're a Grand X, everybody to the right of X now prefers you to A. Why? Because you're closer to their ideal. And half of the people in between the two brands will also flock to your brand. Now we have 3 viable positions in the market. There's no question we have one right in the middle around Brand A, which is bigger than the other 2. But the other 2 are big enough that if you charge your price accordingly for a product that is only available from you, the customer will pay for it. That's how you make people happy. And that's why we see multiple brands in virtually every category. Retailing has to be exactly the same way. Don't sell what the giant sells. If Walmart's selling can openers for $1.49, don't sell B-flat can openers. Why? Because you'll never be able to sell it for $1.49. You want to sell can openers, focus on the big, thick-handled, left-handed models designed for left-handed people opening octagonal cans on alternate Thursdays. You won't sell as many, but trust me, you can probably get $24.95 for each can opener you sell, because they won't be able to find it anywhere else. End of the day, you have to differentiate. If you have more time, I'm happy to share with you some tools to do that, but I do know we're running a little bit short on time right now, so let me throw it open for questions before I go into Friday. Anything at all on how to compete in this line of giants? Yes, ma'am.
You talked about pricing being one of the ways that you're being effective, but it's also the advertising. They have so many more dollars for advertising. And yeah, I have a left-handed octagonal opening can opener thing, but I don't have those dollars to put that word out there.
Okay. So what happens is in essence, what you have to practice is the equivalent of what's called lean manufacturing. The giant needs to sell to everybody. And so the giant will have a big ad budget, and they will spend it showing their ad frequently and putting it in every place possible. So for example, where I live, the local newspaper is called the Kingston Whig Standard. Whig Standard has a circulation of about 70,000 readers. And so when Walmart advertises in the Whig Standard, it reaches 70,000 readers, and it doesn't mind doing so because it's going to sell to the bulk of them. Let's suppose, however, that I have 80 people in my MBA class, and all I want to sell to is those 80 people. And what I want to sell to them is cheater's notes to my final exam. Because they really don't pay faculty very much money, right? So print notes to my final exam. If the only way I can reach them is sticking an ad in the Whig Standard, how productive is my advertising dollar? I'm reaching 69,920 people who never want my product, who have no need for my product, and simply won't pay for
The
it.
dean of your school as well.
Well, the university as well, that's right. 21 people. So what would I do? Well, I would be better off foregoing the $1 million production costs of an ad. I would be better off ignoring the enormous cost tied to circulation of the local newspaper and basically printing off 80 handbills that I would give the students as they walk out the room. Much lower cost, but much more effective in reaching my target market.
Finding the most effective way to.
Correct. So, for example, radio is a great mechanism, great medium. Why? Because I can target specific shows. Each show has a specific audience. Each DJ has a specific personality. They tend to appeal to a certain type of person. I don't put an ad for a product directed at people who love classical music on a rock show. Right? And so I can more effectively allocate my dollars. We can do the same with the internet and social media. We can do the same with publications and so on. It's just a case of being a little bit smarter and really knowing who is that customer and what is it that they're looking to buy from you. The big box store basically wants to say, here's the product, here's the price, come and get it. What you need to be doing in your advertising is not saying, here's the product, here's the price, but here's the reason you come to my store for this product. Here's what I give you over and above the product. Yeah, it may cost a little bit more, but here's why it's worth it. Did that answer your question? Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on loyalty programs?
Loyalty programs. First of all, loyalty programs vary in effectiveness depending upon who you're selling to and what you're doing with the loyalty program. Loyalty programs tend to be very well received with seniors because they love the idea of getting something for free. And despite the fact that they may have relocated to Coburg and bought a house for 200 grand after they just sold their Toronto mansion for 1.6 million, they think they're on fixed income. So loyalty programs tend to be very effective with them, but they want a premium. They want something in return. So they want points, and they want the points to give them free goods typically. Millennials, young people between 20 and 30, also tend to respond very well to loyalty programs. In fact, many millennials will not buy from someone who doesn't offer a loyalty program. Some millennials, like the seniors, want a loyalty program that focuses on low price, or free goods. Others, however, would prefer a loyalty program that offers them experiences, exclusive access to a concert, exclusive access to a source of content or some product feature. It doesn't have to be free goods. It just has to be something that they can't get anywhere else. And it is the latter kind of loyalty program that tends to work best for small businesses. Small businesses don't do real well in the giveaway stakes because the only reason that a big box store can give things away with a loyalty program is it's going to use the data that it generates from the loyalty program to make its advertising more effective. You don't have that capacity. So what typically happens is when a consumer walks in and you say, are you a member of our loyalty program? The customer says, no, I'm not. You say, well, would you like to join? The customer says, how much does it cost? And you say, nothing. And they say, okay. Right? Because it costs them nothing. That's why the average Canadian belongs to 9 loyalty programs. But the reality is it's not influencing our behavior. I'll take it just in case I happen to use it enough to get something free, but it's not motivating my behavior. Okay? The loyalty programs that will motivate behavior are more expensive. Okay? My advice would be, if you want to do a loyalty program, make it a special privileges loyalty program. If you're a restaurant, for example, you might want to give the customer preferred access to reservation times. If you're a movie theater, you might want to give them the ability to buy their tickets in advance and not have to stand in line. In other words, there should be something that distinguishes me from the general public if I am a regular patron of yours. Okay, is that help?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a general statement or an observation from your perspective about downtowns like Coburg that are suffering versus some communities, smaller communities that seem to be having more success as a retail experiential hub? Is there, I'm not saying there's a golden bullet, but does your research point to anything in particular?
Well, not my research, but I can tell you what research says and what we see happening in the marketplace. There are some cities that have very successful downtowns. I happen to come from Kingston, Ontario. Interestingly enough, though, if you were to ask, is it a good downtown for a hard goods retailer? My answer would be not so sure. If the question is it a good downtown for somebody in the bar, restaurant, hotel business, it's an outstanding downtown. Why? Because there is a collection of stores and a collection of hospitality institutions in downtown Kingston. So when I go downtown and I'm going out to dinner and I don't have a reservation, I know I'll find something downtown. Right? I don't know that if I'm going to a standalone restaurant in some strip mall in the suburbs. There it's hit or it's miss. Right? You have to think about a downtown as the equivalent of a mall. It's just a mall without walls and a ceiling. And the better able you are to create a thematic that binds those stores together, the more likely it is your downtown is successful. Part of the reason for that is that the only way you can compete against scale, if you're a small establishment, is by banding together. Right? So you as a store may not be able to finance a music festival inside your store. But if you and 10 or 12 other merchants downtown got together, and this is what downtown business associations are supposed to do for you, then you can collectively combine and have a Buster's Festival, collectively combine and have a Blues Fest, collectively combine and have a craft show, something which serves as a magnet to draw the general population downtown. Once you got them there, then you can beat each other over the head to compete for those individual customers. I mean, there's still a competition, but you are now operating practically like a mall. Does that help? My advice for those of you in downtown areas, band together or go locate closer to the population.
And don't sell at a giant center.
Don't sell it down south.
There's a couple of examples of themes in downtowns that are successful.
Well, you're seeing it in all the festivals. I mean, every city now has festivals, whether it's comedy festivals, blues festivals, Buster's festivals. Sorry?
We'll use a theme.
Yeah, it could be a sidewalk sale. I have seen a very successful downtown event which really focused on young families and kids. And what they basically did was shut down the downtown, brought in the merry-go-rounds and so on. Made it a day to do things with the family. So again, it really depends upon who it is you're trying to sell to, but you develop events around those people. Yes, sir.
Even just talking about theming your downtown, what I was kind of thinking from that would be niche market specialty retail.
Mhm.
Really, like creating those types of communities that are different than your outerline big box areas, really.
Well, you know, ideally in the downtown area, you're going to have higher costs typically of rent than you have in a suburban area. And that pretty well forces your store to have higher prices. So if you buy the notion nobody ever pays more for something that you elsewhere for less, you've got to be selling something different. Something that they can't get on the internet, something they can't get at Walmart. So craft stores, stores that sell hard goods that require a high degree of customization. So, for example, clothing stores where you're paying as much for the fitting as you are for the clothing itself. Obviously, shoe stores that sell something other than what you can get at Aldo or Bata or one of the chain operations. Custom jewelry stores, musical instruments is another one, but it's typically that collection. Yes, sir.
What's the best way to move away from a cost-based living?
The best way to move from.
To move away from.
So you've got a loyalty program, and you're offering people free goods, like a discount. Okay. Do you have any information on how successful the program is being? And would you say successful or unsuccessful?
It's pretty successful.
So it is bringing people back?
Yeah, but that's down to deal with the margin. And the very it's really effective.
Okay. First of all, you have to recognize that we have two kinds of customers. Customers that want quality and customers that want low price. And you may find that without that discount, you can't get the customer that just wants low price. So let me give you a very specific example. Imagine that your 5-year-old is just 25, they're having a birthday. And you've been given the task of buying balloons for their birthday party. Okay? Where do you go to buy the balloons?
Dollar store.
Dollar store?
Yeah, you get helium balloons at a dollar store.
Dollar store.
Yeah.
Man, I really want to be your kid. You don't want the balloon that blows up like 15 times original size? That'll keep the helium in it for 4 months instead of just 4 hours.
Oh, no, they
It comes with a value added freebie at the
They
state.
have to be.
Yeah, but you want 4 months, don't you?
No.
Attention span.
Now, you realize your kid's only gonna turn 4 or 5 one time in their life, right? But you're gonna cheap it on balloons.
Maybe that's the problem in this town, is people don't spend enough money, because people do see the downtown is not busy. Always not busy, I'm always empty. And the business and Main Street is suffering too. And Dollar Upward is gonna put a new building in the mall, and there's another big store coming up, it's called, $2 or $3 or whatever. Another big, so people are just spending $2 here and $2 there.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You look like a little investment style. You ever buy clothes at Dollar General? They have clothes, really nice clothes. Just balloons. Because you don't get a gown by the 5-year-old kid, do you?
Saving up for the college.
What's my point here, right? There are certain product categories that we basically say, I don't need this, I just need something that's good enough. And if you're selling those kinds of products, your customer is always going to be attracted to the Walmarts and Dollaramas of this world, and if you remove that discount, they won't buy from you. Now, whether or not it's profitable selling to them at that discount is another story, but the reality is your prices reflect who you sell to and the value they place on the product. If, however, you're selling a product that they can only get at your store, then giving them a 10% discount, my question for you would be, why are you leaving money on the table? They're going to continue to buy from you no matter what, discount or not, so stop giving them the discount. Instead, take that money you would otherwise give them through the discount, take part of it, and spend it to give them something special in the way of service, in the way of better assortment, in the way of better packaging, or what have you. You can't take away everything and give nothing back. You have to give them something in return. But before you do that, ask yourself the question, is this really a customer I want to be selling to? Does that help? Other questions? Dan, how are we on time? Good? Yes, ma'am.
What's your thought on employee discount program for small business?
Personal? My personal thought, I'm not seeing any research on this. I'm not giving personal thoughts. I'm always careful, right, because if it's research, it's personal, you can take it or leave it. Just remember, I'm never wrong. To me, when I had a store, and I did have a music store in Kingston, still operating, by the way, I don't own it any longer, my partner still does, it's the biggest store between Montreal and Toronto. To me, employees get it at cost. And the reason they get it at cost is, number one, I'm going to give them something in the way of benefits and salary, and this is an inducement to work there and be happy and so on. More importantly, if my employees aren't wearing or using the products I sell, then what message does that send to the average customer? You go into Abercrombie and Fitch, and you won't find one of their salespeople not wearing Abercrombie and Fitch clothing. You go into any clothing store, you'll find the same thing. I want you wearing those clothes. I want you demonstrating the product that you've ever made. So I will, and they will tend to do it wear it outside of work as well, or use it outside of work, and that too is a form of advertising. The one great fear you have, of course, is the potential for abuse, right? Where they simply turn to their friends and say, don't buy it, let me buy it for you, I get the employee discount. But you can put limits on the application of that discount so that they don't have unlimited access to it. There are ways that you can control that. But by all means, I think if you want an employee to feel part of the team, then you have to make them benefit as a team member.
took my fairly unique product and then it was an upscale version of a cheap Chinese product, so something that Chinese are now making at discount prices. I put what I felt was a reasonable price on it, let's say it was $200. Sold a little bit of it, realized that everybody coming into my booth was asking for what was on sale. I didn't have any sales, I told them it was simply, that's my best price, that's what I feel I'm comfortable selling. Following year, I came back, that $200 price tag was still on it, but it was a sale price of a regular price that is now $250. My cost didn't increase $50, but all of a sudden, people were buying them off the shelf.
Okay?
Is that the person looking for the low price? Is it the person looking for the quality? Or is there a third segment that just wants to know they feel that they've got a deal?
Okay. There are several segments beyond just price and quality. In fact, the quality segment itself breaks it into a variety of other segments. So there's the customer that wants quality when measured as product revenue. There's the customer that wants quality when measured as convenience, speed of purchase, and so on. So quality can mean a lot of different things. However, the customer you're really talking about is a customer that we are seeing more and more of these days. It's the person for whom shopping is a sport. And what they are really looking for is the so-called treasure hunt, right? And the treasure hunting customer is the customer that Winners chases. It's the customer that Target originally chased in the U.S. The notion is I'm going to show up and I'm going to find something I wouldn't find anywhere else, wasn't expecting it, but it's a great deal. It gives me something to talk about at cocktail parties and so on. And I get this enormous sense of smarts from the fact that I got this great deal. For over 70% of all Canadians, they want the sense that they're getting the best value when they shop at a store. And value means to them that and over 40% of the 70% say great value comes from finding something they didn't expect to find. So what you're really referring to is something that a lot more people are paying attention to. We call it the merchandising of price. Let me give you an example of how that works. This is a watch. So let's suppose that if this watch sells for $1, you get a good deal, I make an adequate profit, everybody's happy. Okay? Here's how I could make the offer. Buy this watch, $1. Okay? Buy this watch with coupon, buy this watch, regular price $1.10, 10% discount at cash register. Buy this watch, regular price $1.20, with coupon 20 cents off. Why 20 cents off? Because not everyone's going to shop with the coupon, and so I can make it a higher value. Buy this watch, regular price $2. Buy one, get one free. Buy this watch, special accountable purchase, Costco special, 6 watches, $6.
Is it the same as gambling or lottery ticket? You get a reward once in a while, and if people want that reward, they get it.
No, gambling and lottery ticket is more just you putting your faith in the odds that
Yeah, but people, they once in a while they win $10 or $100.
No, how you merchandise your price depends upon what you think is motivating the buyer. So, for example, some buyers want the sensation that they have power when they are buying in large quantities. So for them, the six clocks for $6 has some appeal. Other people are coupon hounds. To them, that's a big part of the game. They won't buy things unless there's a coupon. Well, if any of you have ever bought disposable diapers, you know the game, right? We can all buy disposable diapers at any time, but the reality is everybody buys them on deal, right? If they're not on deal, I don't buy them. Why? Because I know they're coming on deal somewhere. So it just depends on what you think the buyer's motivation is as they think about that shopping behavior. You know, just as if I'm choosing a restaurant for my anniversary, I'm not taking my wife to McDonald's. It's a good place for the 5-year-old's birthday party, but you wouldn't go because you're cheap. But I love my 5-year-old, I would take them. But I wouldn't take my wife there. Why? Because it's a different occasion. So, you know, if I'm buying a gift as a Secret Santa, I'm probably going to go look at Walmart. You know, what about here? A Secret Santa, you wouldn't know what I'm doing anyway. But if, on the other hand, I'm buying a gift for a lifelong friend, or for my parents or something of that ilk, well, now I'm probably going to go downtown where I'll find something different, a little bit special, something that they wouldn't have seen in Walmart, but everyone knows the price of, and so on. It all comes down to what are you asking, what is the justification you're giving that customer in exchange for them spending a little more money or a little more time to get to your store?
There's a story of the $6 watch from Costco, that was 6 watch. A lot of the stuff they have here is more expensive than the other store you can find. Same thing with Home Depot. A lot of stuff they sell there is more expensive than the other store.
Yeah, actually, I have to correct you on Costco. Costco has a corporate policy that the most they will mark up any product is 15%. And so their products are almost always on a price per unit basis. They are typically going to be the cheapest in town. However, just remember, you're giving something up when you buy a Costco. It may be cheaper per unit, but you got to buy 3, and maybe one of the flavors isn't one you normally buy. Or as the joke goes, you know, go to Costco, watch the people show up in their BMWs, walking in with 6 gallons of mayonnaise, 5.5 of which will rot in the fridge before they'll ever get through it. But on a per unit basis, it's a great price. So you kind of have to ask yourself what the consumer wants and whether or not you can educate them as to whether or not the bargain is an illusion or whether it's real. Is that it? Oh, one more?
It's becoming harder and harder to get those premium products because the giants are attacking that market and they are getting higher quality, going after what independents always prided themselves on. So is the only thing we have to do, because we're running out of products to buy, is it just to offer better service to sell the same product, or where do we go? Because we don't manufacture this stuff.
So the question is, we used to, as independents, survive by selling high-end specialty products, things that the giant typically would not sell. Now, of course, giants are starting to say we can carry that too, so what do? So first thing is, obviously you can add services that the giant won't provide. You're not going to find somebody qualified and educated in every product category within a Walmart store. You walk into Walmart, what have you got? You got the breeder Gestapo at the door, you know, who ostensibly is providing direction, but really what they're doing is checking to see whether your spandex is loose enough to smuggle a TV there. It's not a nice thing to say, but you get my sense. The other thing that you can also do is start to add value via courses and education. If yours is a specialty product, you might try and offer courses. If it's a clothing store, and how to put together a wardrobe. You might provide other services like we'll keep track of all the clothing that you buy from us, and we'll tell you what would go well with certain products that you already own, so that level of special attention. Basically, what you're trying to do are things that cannot be standardized. If it can be standardized, the advantage always goes to the big box player. The only other thing that you can do is focus upon reliability. And by reliability, I mean Walmart may offer to carry specialty products, but if you go on their website, Future Shop, I'm not just picking on Walmart now, all big box stores, they will tell you whether or not they have it in that location. And more often than not, they don't have it in every location. So for example, if you go to a Future Shop in a smaller center like Coburg, for example, I can guarantee you that a lot of products that they ostensibly carry and have on their website may not be in stock in Coburg. They can get it for you, but it'll take a week or so. When I say reliability for a local retailer, you have it in stock today when I want it because I don't want to wait. And for that, I will pay a premium. And we've seen that time and time again. And the reason you can do that, by the way, is because you have the data on your local market. Future Shop, Walmart, big box stores have to make their decisions based upon what's happening across the country. You don't. You just focus on what's going on in Coburg, if that's where you live, where your store is. And so you can really customize your assortment and your presentation to the preferences of the Coburg market. So Walmart, when it decides a store format, it has to be conscious it's selling to everybody from kids to seniors. If Coburg has, for example, a large percentage of the population that are seniors, you can start to focus in your store on things that make shopping more comfortable for a senior. Bigger type on the signage, making sure your labels are easy for them to read, more seats in the store because obviously older legs get a little more tired, maybe the ability to do home deliveries, so they don't have to lug the products back and forth. That's the kind of customization and reliability that we really look for to offset the lower prices from the Walmart. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you very much again on behalf of all of us here at Robert. I'm not bringing up here to do something now, but we have some door license giveaway really quick, and Kim will be available for some one-on-one chat. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question, you want to do it on a more personal basis, you're welcome to do that. Also available, I believe, for maybe a rebuttal or two, if you're up for it. Watch this over there. No, I'm sorry about that. I'm over here to do this all on the spot. First thing we're going to give away here is an advertising package from Pine Ridge Broadcasting, Star 93.3, 179 Degrees, and the New Magic 96.7. Is it a commercial? Vicia Sanchez. We have a four-page color ad in Northumberland today. Mary Jo Pat. And an advertising package from NorthumberlandView.ca. Thank you, Chris. To Lisa Morris. The couple of golf packages here from Northumberland News. First, golf at Kawartha Golf and Country Club for Diane Dixon. Handwriting. Penmanship. It's good we know her. And also from Peter, this is golf at Baxter Creek. Oh no, sorry, it's Black Diamond. This goes to the Camp show car. And we have a gift bag from the Portland District Chamber of Commerce for Don McArthur. We also have a gift bag from the Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce to Mike Paul. And we also will provide a gift basket from the Brighton and Crandon Chamber of Commerce. Drum roll, please, Stephen. That wasn't very good. Super